Please, honey, Grandma really needs you right now. She's not feeling well at all. My mother's voice trembled through the phone, thick with what I now realize was nothing but fake concern. At that moment, though, I didn't doubt her words. I was sitting in my small apartment in Cincinnati, completely surrounded by neatly packed luggage. I had been preparing for our long-awaited family cruise, our first real vacation together in years. Excitement had been bubbling inside me for weeks, but the moment I heard those words, my joy quickly turned into worry. Of course, I'll stay, I replied without hesitation. The cruise isn't important if Grandma needs me. I meant those words. I truly did. But I had no idea that within just a few hours, they would come back to haunt me in the most painful way imaginable. My name is Maud Adams, and I'm 29 years old. My whole life, I have always tried to be the dependable one. The daughter who could be trusted to step up when things got tough. I was the one who made sacrifices, the one who never said no when my family needed me. But I never thought that my loyalty, my love for them, would be tested in such a cruel way. For months, I had been looking forward to this vacation. It was supposed to be a chance for us all to relax and reconnect, my parents, my younger sister Julia, and a few of our close relatives. I had even taken time off work, carefully planned my schedule, and bought brand new summer clothes just for the trip. But when my mother called, saying Grandma had been taken to the hospital, all those plans disappeared from my mind. I didn't even think twice about canceling. That evening, as I drove to the hospital, my phone buzzed with a notification. At a red light, I glanced at the screen and felt my heart slam against my ribs. Julia had posted a photo on social media. My breath caught in my throat as I stared at the image, my fingers tightening around the steering wheel. It was a picture of my entire family, Mom, Dad, Julia, my aunts, my uncles, all standing together on the deck of a cruise ship, dressed in their vacation outfits, holding up champagne glasses and a toast. Their smiles were wide, full of joy and celebration. The caption beneath the photo hit me like a slap in the face. Best vacation ever. So blessed to have such an amazing family. Family time. I pulled the car over to the side of the road, my hands shaking. My chest tightened as I reread the caption, as if seeing it again would somehow make it less real. They had lied to me. They had deliberately planned this trip without me. They had used my love for my grandmother against me, feeding me a fake story just to make sure I stayed behind. My heart pounded in disbelief. My mind raced with questions.
Why?
Why would they do this? Why would they go so far to exclude me? What had I done to deserve this kind of betrayal? Swallowing hard, I tried to calm myself down. Maybe there was some kind of mistake. Maybe, just maybe, I had misunderstood something. I forced myself to keep driving, still holding onto a sliver of hope. But when I arrived at the hospital, reality crashed down on me in the cruelest way. There was no record of my grandmother being admitted. No emergency. No illness. No reason for me to be here at all. I felt my stomach drop. A wave of nausea rolled through me as I pulled out my phone and frantically called my parents. Straight to voicemail. Again and again. No answer. My hands were cold, my body numb. I switched to texting, sending message after message. Nothing. Then, in a desperate attempt, I checked Julia's social media again. She had blocked me. Blocked me within minutes of posting that photo. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. The betrayal was so sharp, so sudden, that it felt like I had been physically struck. My own family, the people I had always stood by, the ones I had sacrificed for, had thrown me away without a second thought. They didn't want me there. And they had gone to great lengths to make sure I wouldn't be. I stood there in the middle of that hospital hallway, my phone clutched tightly in my trembling hand, as the truth settled in. I wasn't part of their family. At least, not in the way I had always believed. And for the first time in my life, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I had spent too many years being loyal to people who didn't deserve it. I drove toward Grandma's house, my hands gripping the steering wheel as tears blurred my vision. My heart ached, my mind raced, and my chest felt so tight that it was almost hard to breathe.
How could they do this to me?
My own family, people I had trusted my whole life, had betrayed me in a way I never could have imagined. As I turned onto her quiet street, I was expecting darkness, silence, something that would confirm the terrible lie I had been fed. But instead, to my surprise, the lights in Grandma's house were on. For a brief moment, I hesitated. Maybe they had just discharged her from the hospital? Maybe there was some logical explanation, something I was missing. But deep down, I already knew the truth. With shaky hands, I parked the car, climbed out, and made my way to her front door. My heart pounded as I knocked, my pulse loud in my ears. A few seconds later, the door opened, and there she was, standing in the doorway, perfectly healthy. No signs of illness. No hospital bracelets, no exhaustion, nothing to indicate that she had just been through a medical emergency. She looked at me, her expression shifting from surprise to concern. "Maud, what's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked, pulling me into a warm embrace. The familiar scent of her lavender perfume washed over me, making the lump in my throat even harder to swallow. The moment her arms wrapped around me, the dam inside me broke. The tears I had been holding back spilled freely down my face. Inside, we sat in her cozy living room, where everything felt the same as it always had, safe, comforting, familiar. But nothing felt the same in my heart. And so I told her everything. The cruise, the lies, the social media posts that had shattered my world in a single moment. My voice shook as I spoke, my hands trembling as I wiped at my wet cheeks. "I just don't understand," I whispered, staring down at my lap. "Why would they do this to me? Why lie about you being sick?" Grandma's face darkened with disappointment. She let out a slow, deep sigh, the kind that spoke of old wounds and painful truths. She had always treated me and my younger sister, Julia, equally. But our parents? That was a different story. Growing up in Cincinnati, I had learned the hard way that no matter what I did, I would always be second in their eyes. When Julia wanted dance lessons, they somehow found the money. But when I needed help with college tuition, I had to take out loans and work extra shifts just to get by. I thought about all the times I had visited Grandma over the years, helping her with groceries, taking her to doctor's appointments, or just sitting with her as we flipped through old photo albums, sharing memories. Julia rarely visited. And when she did, it was usually because she needed something: money, favors, attention. Yet, somehow, she was still the golden child in our parents' eyes. "Your mother called me last week," Grandma said finally, her voice tight with anger. "She asked me to play along if you came by. She wanted me to pretend I had been in the hospital." I felt my body tense. "What?" I refused, of course. I told her I wouldn't lie to you. She shook her head in disgust. But I had no idea they would actually go through with it. My heart pounded as the reality of it all sank in. This wasn't just some last-minute change of plans. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding. They had planned this. The cruise wasn't cheap, nearly $3,000 per person for a week-long Caribbean vacation. I had saved for months, working extra hours at the accounting firm where I worked just to afford my ticket. And now I couldn't help but wonder, had they ever planned on including me at all? Had my ticket money somehow helped fund someone else's cabin? The thought made my stomach twist. I let out a shaky breath and stared down at my hands. "You know what hurts the most?" I whispered. They didn't even need some elaborate excuse. They could have just told me they didn't want me there. It would have hurt, but at least it would have been honest. I swallowed the lump in my throat and looked up at Grandma, my voice breaking. "Instead, they used you. They knew how much I love you, how much I care, and they used that to manipulate me." Grandma reached for my hand, her grip surprisingly strong despite her age. Her eyes, full of wisdom and kindness, locked onto mine. "Sometimes, people show you exactly who they are, even when they think they're hiding it," she said softly. I felt my breath hitch. "The question is, sweetheart, what are you going to do with that knowledge?" Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. And for the first time, I realized I had a choice. I could keep chasing after a family that had never truly valued me, or I could finally walk away. I looked up at Grandma and saw something strong and determined in her eyes. I had no idea she had been paying close attention to our family all these years, watching everything more closely than any of us realized. And she had plans of her own. As we sat in her warm living room, my phone buzzed again. I hesitated before picking it up, my heart still aching from everything I had just discovered. It was a message in the family group chat. My cousin, Sam, had sent a bunch of vacation photos, not realizing I had been left behind. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through the pictures. There was Julia, smiling in the sundress I had helped her pick out for the trip. My parents were lounging by the pool, drinks in their hands, looking relaxed and happy. The whole family was gathered at a fancy dinner, dressed up and laughing together. But one picture made my breath catch. It was my mom. She was wearing a diamond necklace, the one Grandma had given her years ago. A necklace that was supposed to be passed down to both her daughters when they turned 31. I turned my phone toward Grandma, my voice shaking. She gave it to Julia already, didn't she? I asked. Even though I'm the older one? Even though we were supposed to share it? Grandma leaned in to look at the photo, her face darkening. She let out a slow breath before speaking. That necklace has been in our family for 3 generations, she said quietly. Your great-grandmother split her jewelry between her daughters equally. That's why I gave it to your mother with clear instructions. It was meant to be shared fairly between you and Julia. But what she told me next made my blood turn cold. The cruise hadn't been paid for by my parents at all. 3 months ago, Grandma had given them $20,000 to plan a family vacation. She had told them clearly that the money was meant for all of us, to enjoy together as a family. Instead, they had used my share to upgrade their own cabins, book extra excursions, and make their trip even more luxurious. I felt my whole body go numb. Grandma's voice was heavy with disappointment. I've been watching, she admitted. For years, I've seen how they treat you differently. I kept hoping they would change. That one day, they'd realize how unfair they were being. But this is the last straw. She stood up and walked to her desk. After a moment of searching, she pulled out a thick manila envelope and held it in her hands. I wasn't going to show you this yet, she said, her voice firm. But you need to know. She handed it to me, and I carefully opened it. Inside were years' worth of proof, bank statements, photos, emails, and handwritten notes. Records of every time they had favored Julia over me. Every time they had taken advantage of my kindness. Every dollar they had spent differently between us. My hands trembled as I flipped through the pages. It wasn't just in my head. It wasn't just a feeling. The truth had been right in front of me all along. I read through the papers, my hands shaking. The truth was right there in black and white. It wasn't just in my head. It had been real all along. The favoritism, the unfairness, the way they always put Julia first, it had all been done on purpose, over and over again. But why? I whispered, my voice barely audible. Years of doubt, gaslighting, and denial crashed down on me all at once. Why did they always make me feel like I was imagining it? Grandma's eyes flashed with a fire I had never seen before. Because that's what people do when they know they're wrong, she said firmly. They make you question yourself. They twist things around so you doubt what you see and feel. But not anymore, Maud. Not anymore. The family cruise was set to last 8 days. The next morning, as I sat in my apartment in Cincinnati, going through Grandma's documents, my phone lit up with a message from Julia. Mom said you're spreading lies about us. Why can't you just be happy for once instead of trying to ruin everything? I stared at the words on my screen, my stomach twisting with anger. Even after everything they had done, they were still trying to make me the villain. For years, I had stayed quiet. I had swallowed my pain, let them walk all over me, convinced myself that if I just tried harder, they would finally treat me as part of the family. But this time, I wasn't going to stay silent. Instead of responding to Julia, I did something I had never dared to do before. I posted the truth on social media. Funny how being lied to about my grandmother being hospitalized just so my family could exclude me from a vacation somehow makes me the problem, I wrote. Then, I attached the very same photo Julia had posted, the one where she and the rest of my family were celebrating on the cruise. Even funnier how the cruise was paid for with money that was meant to include me. Within minutes, my post exploded with reactions. Friends and family who had known us for years commented in shock. Some of my cousins, who hadn't realized what had really happened, started messaging me privately, sharing their own memories, moments they had noticed how differently I was treated but hadn't put the pieces together before. Then my phone rang. It was my father. I almost didn't answer, but Grandma's words echoed in my mind. Stand your ground. You've done nothing wrong. Taking a deep breath, I picked up. His voice was cold. Take down that post immediately. No, Dad. My voice was steady, despite the storm raging inside me. You embarrassed this family when you lied about Grandma being sick. When you took her money meant for all of us, and used it to cut me out. That's what should embarrass you. That's not how it happened, he snapped. We needed a break from your constant. He stopped mid-sentence. My constant what, Dad? I pressed. My constant reliability? My constant help with Grandma? My constant effort to be part of this family despite how you treat me? Silence. Then, when he finally spoke again, his tone had changed. It was lower, harsher. If you don't take down that post and apologize for your lies, you'll regret it. A chill ran down my spine. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you, he said. Your mother and I have protected you all these years. We've kept certain things from you. If you want to start a war, fine. But remember, you're not the only one who can tell stories. Then the line went dead. I sat there, my heart pounding. What had he meant? What things had they protected me from? What stories could they possibly tell? My hands were shaking as I dialed Grandma's number. She answered on the first ring. They're trying to scare me, I whispered. I told Grandma what Dad had said, that they had been protecting me from something but refused to say what. She was silent for a long time. Then finally she spoke. Go to your email, she said. I'm sending you something. It's time you knew everything. A nervous feeling settled in my stomach as I grabbed my laptop and opened my inbox. My hands trembled slightly as I clicked on Grandma's message. I had a strong feeling that whatever was in this email was much bigger than just a family cruise. And judging by the serious tone in Grandma's voice, my parents had every reason to be afraid of what I was about to discover. Inside the email was a scanned document, one that made my breath catch the moment I read the title. It was a trust agreement, dated 26 years ago. According to the paperwork, my grandfather, my mother's father, had left behind a significant fortune before he passed away. The money was supposed to be divided equally among all his grandchildren when they turned 31. The trust was worth over $3 million. I felt my stomach drop as I continued reading. Attached to the email were bank statements, dozens of them, showing years of withdrawals from the trust. And every single one of them had gone toward Julia. Her dance lessons, her private school education, her college tuition, even her recent wedding. Money that was supposed to be mine had been spent on her, little by little, until there was barely anything left. My chest tightened as the realization hit me like a freight train. They've been stealing from you since you were 4 years old, Grandma said over the phone, her voice full of quiet anger. I could barely find my voice.
How?
Your mother convinced the trustee, her brother, Olivier, to give her early access to your portion, she explained. She claimed it was for your benefit, but as you can see, they spent it all on Julia. I stared at the numbers on the screen, my heart pounding. Over $500,000 had been taken from me. And while Julia had lived comfortably, I had worked multiple jobs to put myself through college. Just then, another email came through. This time it was from my uncle Olivier. My hands shook as I opened it. Maud, I can't stay silent anymore. What they did with the cruise money was the last straw. I've attached documentation of every withdrawal they made from your trust.
I'm so sorry.
I should have stopped them years ago. I scrolled down to the attached files. What I found made my blood run cold. My parents hadn't just used my trust fund to support Julia. They had stolen from it for themselves. Luxury vacations, expensive purchases, personal investments. The cruise was just the latest example of their long-running scheme. I clenched my jaw, my hands tightening into fists. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I asked Grandma, trying to process the weight of this betrayal. I only discovered the full extent of it recently, she admitted. When I confronted your mother about it last month, she swore they'd pay it all back. That's when I gave them the money for the cruise. I froze. Wait, you gave them that money on purpose? It was a test, Maud.
Her voice was firm.
I wanted to see if they'd finally do the right thing. I let out a bitter laugh. And they failed. Spectacularly. Yes, Grandma said. But their failure gave us exactly what we needed, proof. I took a deep breath, my mind racing. Uncle Olivier has agreed to testify about how they manipulated the trust, she continued. And with my records and the cruise incident, we have enough to take legal action. I exhaled slowly, my fingers still gripping the edges of my laptop. For years, I had accepted their mistreatment. I had convinced myself that maybe I was overreacting, that maybe I just wasn't good enough. But now I had proof. And I was done being their victim. I took a deep breath, my shock fading as a new feeling took over. Determination. Even better than that, Grandma said, her voice firm. We can make sure they never hurt you again. She told me to check the second attachment in her email. My fingers were shaky as I clicked it open.
What I saw made me gasp.
It was Grandma's will, recently updated. She had made me the sole heir to her estate. But that wasn't all. Her estate included controlling ownership of the family business, the very company where my father worked as CEO. Grandma's voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. They're about to learn that their actions have consequences. The next morning, I met Uncle Olivier at a small cafe in downtown Cincinnati. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, hands slightly shaking as he slid a thick folder across the table. These are copies of every document, every transaction, he said quietly. I've already sent everything to the family attorney. I flipped through the papers, my stomach tightening with every page. Years of financial lies, manipulation, and stolen money, all laid out in black and white. What are they saying? I asked, knowing my parents wouldn't go down without a fight. Uncle Olivier let out a bitter laugh. They're claiming it was all for your own good, that they were protecting you from having too much money at a young age. I clenched my jaw. Unbelievable. He nodded, then pulled out another document, his expression turning even more serious. But I found something else, he said. Something they don't know I know about. I leaned forward as he placed a new set of papers in front of me. It showed a series of recent money transfers.
To an offshore account.
A chill ran through me. They're planning to leave the country, Maud. I stared at him, my pulse pounding. They've been moving money around, preparing for something. The cruise wasn't just a vacation, it was a test run. They were checking if their passports would raise any red flags before they disappear for good. I felt my blood turn ice cold. And Julia? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Uncle Olivier's face darkened. She's in on it. She's been helping them set up accounts in her name to hide the money. At that exact moment, my phone buzzed. A text. From Julia. I know what you're doing. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're trying to ruin everything. Well, guess what? You're too late. By the time you figure it out, we'll be gone, and you'll have nothing. I turned the screen toward Uncle Olivier. His face paled. They're moving faster than I thought, he said. We need to act now. I didn't hesitate. I called Grandma immediately. She answered on the first ring, as if she had been waiting. They're at the family company right now, she said without any greeting. Your father is cleaning out his office. Security just called me. My breath caught. Can they stop him? Grandma's voice was calm but firm. Better. I already called the police. And the FBI. Financial Crimes Division. They're on their way. I gripped the phone tighter, my heart racing. But Maud, she continued, you need to get down there. You're the controlling shareholder now. The paperwork was filed first thing this morning. I swallowed hard. It was time to end this. I stood up so fast that my chair scraped against the floor. They don't know that yet, do they? I said to Uncle Olivier. That's our advantage. We need to get there before they destroy any evidence. Your documents prove the theft, but Who knows what else they've been hiding? As I rushed to my car, my phone buzzed again. A text from my mother. You ungrateful child. After everything we've done for you, you'll regret this. But for the first time, her threats didn't scare me. I had the truth on my side. And more importantly, I had nothing left to lose. The confrontation. I arrived at the company headquarters just in time to see my parents walking out of the building, carrying boxes from my father's office. Julia was with them. She looked nervous, glancing around as if expecting something to happen. They all froze the moment I stepped out of my car. My father straightened his shoulders, trying to regain his usual commanding presence. "What are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice sharp. But I saw the fear in his eyes. I smiled coldly. "Funny, I was about to ask you the same thing," I replied. "Especially since you're removing items from my company without authorization." Julia let out a short laugh. "Your company?
What are you talking about?"
I pulled out my phone and held up the screen. "Grandma transferred her controlling shares to me this morning. That makes me the majority owner. And as the new boss, I'd love to know what's in those boxes. Could it be evidence of how you stole from my trust fund?" My mother's face went pale. Behind them, sirens blared. Police cars pulled into the parking lot, lights flashing. FBI agents stepped out of unmarked vehicles. And then I saw Uncle Olivier's car pull up. Grandma was in the passenger seat, watching everything unfold. Panic set in. My mother's voice trembled. "You don't understand," she pleaded. "Everything we did was for this family." I shook my head.
No.
"Everything you did was for Julia. And now, you were planning to run away with what's left of my money." I turned to my sister. "So, Julia, did you enjoy the cruise?" I asked. "Was it worth it?" Her face crumpled. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Maud, please." But it was too late. The FBI agents closed in. My father grabbed Julia's arm, trying to pull her away, but they were surrounded. The truth had finally caught up with them. 4 months later, I sat with Grandma in her garden, sipping coffee as the crisp autumn air rustled the golden leaves around us. So much had changed. The FBI's investigation had uncovered even more than we expected. My parents hadn't just stolen from my trust fund, they had embezzled money from the company, too. Now, they were facing federal charges. Multiple lawsuits had been filed by shareholders, and everything they had built was falling apart. Julia had cut a deal with prosecutors, agreeing to testify in exchange for immunity. She had moved to Michigan, forced to finally support herself without our parents' financial help. Her last message to me had been a long apology, but some wounds ran too deep for simple words to fix. Grandma took a slow sip of her coffee, watching the leaves drift to the ground. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "your grandfather would be proud of how you handled everything. He always said money reveals people's true character." I nodded, staring out at the trees, thinking about everything that had happened. And he had been right. I had made big changes at the company. Under my leadership, we started a scholarship program for employees' children and created a clear and honest financial system. The business was doing better than ever, this time built on honesty instead of lies. I never wanted any of this, I admitted. I just wanted to be treated fairly. Grandma reached over and gently squeezed my hand. "Sometimes, life's biggest blessings come disguised as its hardest challenges," she said. "You took their betrayal and turned it into something good." She was right. I had found my strength, my purpose, and most importantly, my self-worth. That cruise they took without me? It wasn't the vacation of a lifetime after all. It was the beginning of their downfall, and the start of my new life.